Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I am Dr. Dara Winley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am so excited because I am getting ready to introduce you all to Unya Lee, who will be talking to us about some somatic exercises today. But for those of you who are new to this channel, this is called Attention Ladies under the Dr. Dara Winley YouTube channel. And Attention Ladies is a ministry for women and specifically Christian women, but all women are welcome who want to grow an emotionally healthy spirituality. And so we have been invested in a friendship series for the last 3 months. It's been extended this year. We do this annually every August to about October, and we have different guests come on to talk about how to manage our relationships, our friendships. And today we're just emphasizing the importance of managing our own emotions through conflict and through different interpersonal experiences. So I'm really excited for you all to introduce you all to my friend Unya, who's going to talk a little bit about somatic exercises and the importance of emotion regulation, especially because a lot of us are working through friendship conflicts and differences in communication styles and patterns, and how that all impacts how you show up with your friends. So really excited to get this work in front of you all. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Unya to share a little bit about her work and how you can learn more about what she does. Thank you for joining us, Unya.
Thank you, Dr. Dara. So good to be here with you. And I work with people who have difficult relationships that cannot be addressed by traditional methods of trying to understand relationships. There are some unhelpful, toxic dynamics that really need to be considered. And so I work with people who have those kind of relationships and also people who have experienced a lot of trauma. I find that in American culture, we tend to address things like anxiety, depression, trauma more from a cognitive rational approach, because that's kind of the history of counseling in our field. And more new research is coming out that we really can't ignore our bodies. And so the trauma work that I do, while incorporating how we're thinking about things, our history, our family relationships, our current relationships, how we're taking care of ourselves, also implements what's happening in our bodies and what is our brain picking up from our bodies.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm so excited to learn more from you around this topic and to bring this to this community. So, a lot of people have been asking questions about how to respond to trauma, and trauma is a big buzzword right now in our culture and our generation. So, it's exciting to hear this, and also embedded in within a biblical perspective as well, right? So, just kind of grounding that out. So I like to start off with all of my guests with an icebreaker question, just so my guests can get to know a little more about you as well, and kind of what led you into this work. So my icebreaker question for you is, when did you realize that taking care of your emotional health was important in your life?
We learn in stages, right? So I grew up with a pretty harsh father, unfortunately. And in my early 20s, I noticed that I was harshly criticizing myself when I had made some mistakes and missed some details that nobody else missed. And I heard God say to me at that time that I do not speak this way to you. That is not my voice. And I've been very careful ever since then to watch how I talk to myself. And as I've been married, I've been noticing how I have the tendency to be a caregiver of other people, caring for other people all the time. And I was ignoring how I was doing. And I don't think that's what God has us do. I think He wants us to be responsible for ourselves. And as we're also taking care of other people. So those are some of the things that God has been speaking to me about. How am I taking care of my own body, my own self, as well as taking care of others?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's important for us to hear as people who are not in the mental health fields. To hear a little bit about why we come into this work and how the Lord is even like teaching us things as we're helping other people. So just to turn us to somatic exercises, if you can just explain like what is a somatic exercise, what does that word mean, and why is it helpful? And I'm asking this because, especially the community that I'm working with, a lot of Christian women, Christian couples that I work with, they may not be familiar with the word somatic and might tie it to some sort of like new age practice, which some people have concerns about,
Mhm.
as far as like just wanting to have more information about it and make sure that they're not practicing something that doesn't align with their personal beliefs. And so I want us to talk a little bit about like how to define that and like why is it helpful.
Such an important thing to consider, especially these days now that new age practices are really infiltrating even just our medical systems. So, somatic exercises are exercises that help you grow a sense of ease and safety in your body and also grow a connection between your body and your brain. Now, studies have shown that the brains of people who've been in trauma or prolonged stress have a weakened ability to pick up positive or neutral signals from the body and yet are overactive to highly negative signals from the body. Kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been through a lot of stress and trauma, it's not fun to always be tuned into all of that negative information from your body. And so over time, though, it starts to work against us that even when there are signals that are say, hey, we're just hanging out, nothing is happening, nothing's going on, our brain will tend to ignore that. And so that's what studies have shown, even in depression, that those areas of the brain will not be very active for uh, senses from the body, signals from the body that say, hey, nothing much going on. Only the things that are super high charged and negative. And so our brains are constantly seeking data, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. Our brains are constantly data mining. Our brains are constantly data mining our bodies to say, what information are you giving? What information and what state should I put my body in? Do I need to get ready to fight or flight, freeze in order to survive? Because that's the brain's number one priority is to survive. So always in that state. And this constant seeking of data, or can I rest now? And so this constant seeking of data, it's called interoception. Interoception kind of sounds like perception for a reason because it is a form of perception. Interoception is paying attention to the signals from inside your body, inside your interoception. So examples like when you say, am I hungry or am I actually thirsty? Right? That's an important question we ask sometimes. We're actually thirsty. Sometimes we just eat. That's a lack of interoception. Am I sleepy or am I coming down with a cold? You kind of have a way of kind of testing.
Mm-hmm.
My throat is a little scratchy. That's interoception. Or you're driving and should I get off on the exit immediately or can I go another 20 minutes? How long can I hold my bladder? That's our sense of interoception. Our interoception is being used all the time, gathering and meaning making and making meaning from that data from our bodies. So it's important to help guide our bodies to practice not only being under stress all the time, which in American society, honestly, that's what we're set up for. This is our culture to be in stress all the time,
Yeah.
to go, 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 do, think, scroll.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually giving our bodies that practice to be kind of in a stress state. And so it's important to help our bodies to not only do that, not all stress is bad. When you exercise, you're also in a stress state. So not all stress is bad. It's also practicing, giving our bodies practice at being at ease. And somatic exercises is one of those ways. And in the way that it's practiced, it tends to go deeper. Because even if we take a breath, we tend to take a breath for 2 seconds in our culture. That's what we do. We allow for us to take a breath and then we go. And so somatic exercises help you to have more ease, practicing more ease. And not only that, but it's also helping our brains now to pick up, to start paying attention to signals that say, this is positive or it's even neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Not a huge deal, nothing much going on. So it's making those connections where those connections have been lost through things like prolonged stress and trauma. And so somatic exercises are kind of like physical therapy, but for your nervous system, that side of your nervous system that calms yourself,
Mm.
not just the stressful side. So you had also mentioned that concern with the new age. And as Christians, absolutely, when we hear mind body, because it kind of sounds foreign to us, we need to educate ourselves on what the new age is and also what basic physiology is. Physiology meaning how God made our brains and bodies to work.
Mhm.
And so these ways of connecting our minds to our bodies, they sound foreign because we are in a culture too. We're in Western culture,
Mhm. Mhm.
which has neglected this connection. And this is not, Western culture is not God's design.
Mm. That's good.
Western culture has disconnected our minds from our bodies. That's not God who disconnected minds from bodies. And research bears that out. That
Mm.
disconnection shows up in trauma, stress, depression, anxiety. And so the tricky thing is, though, that New Age practices are very into these exact same topics: trauma healing, somatic exercises, nervous system regulation, mind body practices. They use that same languaging. Yet they do not own these ideas. God owns these ideas. They don't own these ideas. So, what New Age thought has done, they have placed their New Age take and methods on those very things that we're talking about today that God wants for us, yet they do it in their New Age way. So, for example, there's this practice called Reiki. Medical centers now around the world are starting to recognize and uphold this practice of Reiki. But what and they say it's for stress reduction, relaxation, addressing pain, chronic pain. And that makes sense, right? If your body is sensed in a tense state all the time, then it's going to increase your pain, things like that. So, and they also say spiritual healing.
Yeah.
And Reiki is the practitioner hovers their hands above different parts of your body. And they're also sometimes placing their hands on the body too. But the key thing element to pay attention to here is that they're acting as a conduit, they say. Their hand as a conduit of the universal life force energy to come through the hand into the body. What are we talking about here, right? And the new age practices really, when you look into it, they say that Jesus, I mean, he was a good man. Sure, they'll even say he was a God, but only in the way that we are all gods, is what New Age will say, right? And as Christians, that just doesn't square with what we believe.
Yeah.
And so the somatic practices, at least the ones that I'm trained in, they're more like physical therapy, just training your body's ability to build up what's been atrophied,
Mhm.
right? That like has gotten weaker. I'm going to physical therapy right now. So interesting. I have a tendonitis issue. It's this muscle's weak. I got to strengthen this muscle by doing this. I have to strengthen my shoulder muscles. That's what
Mm.
physical therapy does, right? It's certain parts are underused or through aging, your muscles are not as strong, whatever, and you have to strengthen them because they have gotten weak. And so that's what these somatic practices, strengthening your body's ability to be in calmer states, and then strengthening your brain's ability to pick up those calmer states.
Mm. That's so good. Wow, thank you for educating us on that. I learned a lot through that sharing. Really, really helpful. And I think for people who just don't think about their body, don't think about their emotions just throughout their day, so it's really helpful to like help them get centered and also giving some knowledge and insight into like what actually is new age practices. Because I think sometimes believers we move away just from everything and we just disengage because we don't know, and that's fair for some people, but just to get educated and have some language around what's really happening and what actually God does care about within our bodies and our minds is really important. So thank you for sharing the differences and helping
Mhm.
us think about that a little differently. I'm also curious about the word emotion regulation and where that comes into play, and how does somatic exercise help with emotion regulation?
Mhm. Emotion regulation is being aware of your emotions, understanding what led you to feel that way, and being able to address your emotions in a way that's good for you. It's good for your relationships, and it's it's important in that you're being responsible, like I was talking about, to take care of yourself and to show up well for others. And so the way that somatic exercises are related to this is that the same areas of the brain that are used for interoception are the areas that process emotion.
Mhm. Wow.
So regulating your emotions, processing your emotions has everything to do with what your brain picks up from your body. And so if you don't have good connection to your body's signals, the easeful ones, then it's going to be a lot harder to feel okay. If you're just paying attention to the negative in your body, then it's also going to reflect on how you feel and then how you think. Now, Western thinking is think differently, right? Think differently, and then you can address your anxiety. We do this in the church too. Think differently, and you can address your depression. I'm not saying that we don't have to think differently. Absolutely, scripture says be very aware of what you're doing with your mind. So this is not at odds. We just don't want to neglect the body. That's what we've done in Western culture.
That's
And
good.
so Western Christianity also has done the neglecting. So the body, it's not the most important. It's not the only thing. It's just a thing that has gotten neglected. And there are huge implications. And so if your body is stuck in the survival mode of fight, flight, freeze, or fawning, right? Shutting down, then it's like trying to plant a seed into hardened concrete. That's what that fight flight mode is. The seed is your thought. I'm trying to think and it just keeps bouncing. It's not taking root sometimes. Sometimes it does. And I'm not going to underplay the power of the spirit. Sometimes you can pray for someone and they just feel calmer. They just feel God's presence. That is real. I believe that. I've experienced that for others and for myself. And if your body is in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, then it's going to be harder to take up some of these truths that you, on the one hand, know are true, but it's hard for you to actually buy it. It's hard for those thoughts that you have, that rational mind that we value so much, to actually land.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for giving us a definition. Um, yeah, and I just really appreciate you naming how much Western Christianity slash Western psychology, or our Western world has neglected the body. Like I think that even though it sounds like so simple, it's like a light bulb can go off. Really like thinking about how much we neglect and don't attend to some of the emotional needs that our body is craving. So, thank you for mentioning that. I also hear the word co-regulation a lot. I talk to my clients about this, but I hear like for just layman's terms, people don't know, what that means or what that looks like, or even they don't know when they're doing it. So, co-regulation. I would love for you if you could define that for us, and to tell us like what happens when we use it in healthy and unhealthy ways, and if that is possible at all.
Mhm. Yeah, we aren't born with an ability to regulate our own bodies, our stress levels, our emotions. We're not. We're born definitely with an ability to get stressed.
Hmm. Okay.
So babies can definitely get stressed.
Hmm.
They can get scared. They don't have the ability to say, "Shh, it's okay, it's okay." And so that is the role of the caregiver. That's what co-regulation is a caregiver that regularly shows up and says, it's okay, I'm right here. Are you hungry? Right? Interoception. Are you hungry? Are you tired? And then giving the baby what it needs, right? And through that repeated experience, I'm stressed. It's okay, right? The regulated presence of a caregiver now grows, like that physical therapy now, but that's happening as you're developing, starting to exercise the calming system. And so that's how co-regulation works. I feel not regulated, dysregulated,
Mhm.
right? Another way to talk about this is a window of tolerance. Window of tolerance is I have stress and I have an ability, right? Because my ability in my body to calm is just as strong. Now I have this window that when the stress goes up, my body can bring it back down. That's what the window is. And so babies, they're born with a flat line. They have no window of tolerance because all they have is stress going up, 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 and nothing in their bodies that bring it back down. That's the co-regulation that brings it back down. And as they keep getting that exercise, they start to build that ability in themselves. That window grows. Now they have a window of tolerance. And so that's what co-regulation does, is help build that. And so now what do? If you grew up in an environment that if your parents had 4 jobs, they were working so hard, they couldn't attend to you, or they themselves had their own trauma or depression, or you lived in a neighborhood that was scary, or you grew up bullied a lot, and your need for regulation isn't met sufficiently for one reason or another, then it's like your window doesn't grow, or it's just like it's challenged, right? It's just like this, because my stresses are way high and my ability to bring it down is only this big. And so now you get a window this big. So what do you do when you're an adult and your window is very small? Yeah. And so that's what we typically do is in friendships and in marriage, we well, it depends because some people will just shut down and they just don't even turn to other people. And that's not healthy either. We are meant to be in community. That doesn't mean we're meant to be in marriage.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
look at how Jesus and his disciples existed. They didn't seek out marriage. That's not the ultimate goal. That's, again, our culture. That's our Western thinking. Community is what God made us for. So we are meant to be connected to one another and connected to ourselves. And yet, if you don't have this window of tolerance within yourself, then what people tend to do, because it's so uncomfortable to to have that much stress and no window and to not to be able to bring it down, then that is why we tend to go to medication, substance abuse, addictive behaviors, relationships that aren't even good for us, that somehow give us some little measure of regulation as much as we can get it. And so what we do in our relationships then is sometimes this is where it goes left, is we start to put that responsibility of regulation or self-regulation onto another person, and thinking that co-regulation is the only way that can be regulated, or substances, right? If they're not turning to other substances or other, so it's these other ways that we use to try to bring that stress level down. And unhealthy co-regulation is putting that responsibility onto another person. And the good news about this is that if you didn't have that support as you were developing, or you did, but you've lived really, really in states of stress and trauma later on in life, and something has disconnected your brain's ability to pick up positive and neutral signals from your body, and your body hasn't learned how to regulate or has lost that ability to regulate, the window has shrunk down. The good news is you can build that window back up by doing those very physical therapy type exercises for your nervous system and body that I'm trained in. I can't speak to other, because that term somatic exercise is used a lot, but that's what I'm trained in. And that has been borne out in my work with people that people can now exist in ways that they didn't know they could exist.
Mhm.
They had started to define themselves as, I'm an anxious person. I'm just somebody just who's very angry. I'm just shut down. I'm a depressed person. When really they were stuck in survival modes. And when they didn't have to be stuck in survival modes anymore, they started to have a different view of themselves. There are even people who say God's God's presence is for everybody else, but somehow he's not meeting me because they're so stuck in anxiety and depression, they can't even sense the nearness of God. And so these things work together. It's not one opposed to the other. It's not either you do prayer or you do somatic exercises. It's these things work together. Let's not neglect the thing that's been neglected just because it's been neglected in our culture. And so the other thing to really pay attention to with co-regulation is when it's unhealthy, you start to drain the other person because people were not they were not made to be your source of regulation. That's only true when you're born. That is the responsibility of the caregiver.
There's an entitlement for the child is entitled to
The
that.
child is entitled. The baby is entitled to have that. But as you grow and into an adult, you're no longer a child anymore. There's nobody else that you have that claim to, that I am entitled to get this from you. Because that other person, so the person who's very dysregulated, it's really because being in survival modes is really, it's the form of suffering. It's really painful. It's really hard. And of course, you're going to try to grab whatever you can to try to feel better. And you end up missing the other person altogether. How is the other person feeling?
Mm.
Right? Babies don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
That's not their role. They don't have to think, how is mama feeling? Mama is usually sleep deprived, is so exhausted. That's not the baby's concern. But as when we grow up, that is our concern. As adults, that is our concern, to be responsible, to grow our own ability to regulate, and to turn to one another to co-regulate, but in ways that are respectful and mindful of the other person's needs. Sometimes the other person gets drained by being a support to others, right? And so do you have space to consider that about the other person when you're in high states of distress and you need co-regulation from your friend? Do you also take the time to think, what are they going through? Do they have energy for this? Right. So it's making space for yourself as well as caring for, um, making space for others as well as caring for yourself.
That's so great. Thank you for breaking that down. Oh man, such rich, important information for the body, for just all people to know what that looks like. And I can imagine people listening right now are probably like, uh oh, that kind of identifying with what Unya is saying. And so for people who are like kind of deep into the trenches of co-regulating, um, and they want to get into a place of like regulating their own emotions, but also they may not know like when should I reach out, when do I ask for support, and when do I have any indicators of like just taking care of myself that is like a healthy response and it's not rupturing the relationship, right? Like how can they make those decisions? What if you have any advice or thoughts about that?
I think keeping in mind responsibility for regulation is mine. And it's okay and it's good to ask for help. And if that person is not available, they didn't wrong you. They're not doing anything to you, right? Ultimately, have you done enough? Do you do enough on your own, as much as you can, to care for yourself? Do you seek out? No, not everybody has the resources to be able to seek out a therapist. They don't have the right insurance, what have you, right? If you do, if you're blessed enough to be able to do that, then identifying that I can be a drain on other people. Now, this is not to discourage reaching out. We all need each other to
Mhm.
help regulate us. It's really important. And that is not going to go deep enough, though. It's not going to do that deep reconnection, kind of like my physical therapy. I have to do 10 sets or 10, 3 sets of 10 this way, this way.
Yeah.
I have my little putty.
Oh, you're right. That's your
Right.
responsibility. Someone
Like,
can't.
this is my responsibility to do this, right? I have to make sure that I'm doing this. And so if I don't make room for that for myself and I'm constantly only going to other people, that's a bad sign. And so let's say ways of caring for yourself are really hard. There are some people who going for a walk is really good for you. Some people who can't go on a walk because they feel too anxious. Well, what can you do? Can you sit in your room and can you look outside the window? And can you notice, can you use your five senses and look outside the window, notice the trees, outline them with your eyes? Can you notice the smell of a candle? Can you notice things that are relaxing for you? And trying to build in practices that exercise, that ease in your body, and then doing the somatic exercises, fitting them in. They can be boring. They really can. And sometimes you can do them and feel nothing. And that's not going to be a surprise because if you don't have a connection, sometimes you're not going to feel the connection. It's kind of like when you take a walk in a grassy field. One of my instructors gives this. Her name is Kathy Kane.
Mhm.
She gives this illustration of you're walking through a grassy field. You look back, you're not going to see a path behind you. You walk that path again. Walk that, you might start to see a little path forming. This is how your body changes too. You just do the thing over and over and over again. That sounds familiar with anyone who's trying to build muscles.
Yeah.
You do it over the first time I do, my bicep curls, my biceps are not going to be stronger from that one time of doing. I might not even notice anything, but it's that walk over and over and you start to build new neural pathways. And so that's how you treat these somatic exercises too, is I might not notice anything and it's not something that might calm me right in the moment. And as I practice, 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 I'm giving my body practice at doing something different than what my culture keeps reinforcing in me. And then I'm opening up this window over time. And what can happen and happens to a lot of my clients that happen to me is that if you grew up with a lot of childhood trauma, chances are good that you not only have fight or flight, but you have freeze, everything shutting down. As little ones, things can get really overwhelming for us.
Yeah.
And it's good that our bodies can't pick up those signals, but that's going to work against us, and it does. And so, what can happen though is as you increase a sense of safety in your body, increase that ease, and then increase that connection, your body starts to come out of the high freeze states. I put freeze up here. It's fight, flight, freeze.
Mhm.
When the stress increases, you freeze. And so, as that high state of stress starts to come down, you can drop down into high states of irritability and anxiety. So you could just be a little bit more agitated, harder to sleep, a little jumpier, and just feeling more anxious. And that happened to me. And good thing I understood what was happening to me, but I went into full blown panic attacks.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I knew that that was a good sign that my body was no longer stuck. It was moving. It now had all of this energy that my body had shut down. and it was not comfortable. And so what do you do when you're and my thoughts at times would just spin, and that was new for me. What if this? What if that? What if this? What if that?
Mhm.
And I tried to pray, and I'm not against prayer. I'm all for it. Prayer, actually, there's research behind how good prayer is too. And I tried to pray, I just couldn't. And so what do you do? I did those exercises like they were manna. I hope that wasn't blasphemous, but the Lord, He's good. He's
Yeah.
good. And it it helped me. It helped me to now move from that fight, flight, high states down into more areas of safety. And so again, it's not the only thing. It's not the most important thing. It's a neglected thing.
Mhm. So good. Thank you, Unya, sharing that. It's like the gift that keeps giving. You know, you can go back to this place, like you said, finding safety within your body, right? Because I think with co-regulation or overly co-regulating is trying to find safety outside of your body, other people, like relying on other people to make you feel safe. And again, there's a place for that, right? And so, thank you for naming like how someone might want to pay attention to their body and maybe some efforts that they can make on their end on regulating first. And also just knowing like there are times when you might be overwhelmed emotionally and you might need advice, you know, so reaching out to friends and
Yes.
counselors and spiritual mentors to help guide you on decision making depending on, you know, whatever presenting concern you're experiencing. So
Mhm.
yeah, so I think that we should switch over and do a practice for the audience on somatic exercise. For those of you who have been listening so far, this is a treat from Unya Lee, who also has her own YouTube channel with somatic exercises that are also listed there called Be Well Counseling Services. Because she is a mental health professional and offers these services as well. So we get a treat to engage into a somatic exercise. So I will turn it over to you for us to get positioned into that.
Thank you. The YouTube channel is called Being Well Grounded.
Okay, my bad.
And I will be eventually adding more informational videos on there. Right now, they're just exercises, and they're in the making. They're a work in progress. So that's why I keep making more, because earlier ones, I didn't like something about them. Other people might like it just fine, but there are they're all basically the same. We're focusing on the areas of our body, especially the kidneys and adrenal glands, which my instructor has dis one of my instructors has just discovered over time that giving support to that area somehow just calms us. She doesn't know exactly the reason, but her theory is that the adrenal glands, that area is where we do a lot of our stress signaling. And so possibly we're interrupting that overactive signaling from the adrenal glands by giving it a sense of support and ease. That's just a theory. Same thing with the brainstem area. We tend to have a lot of tension and work really hard to try to pick up messages. What if we were to just have a little ease in that area? And
Good.
so the exercises that we'll do, sometimes these exercises of focusing inside your body can be really difficult because you don't have a connection. And if you don't, be encouraged. This is exactly what you need to be doing. And so if this is hard for you, then there are some ways to slowly build up. Like, I'm not going to bench press 100 today. It's like a slowly build up. So the way to do that is to use more of your external senses, exteroception, external senses, just really practicing. What do I see? Right? There's that like 5 things that I see, 4 things that I can feel, 3 things that I can smell, like going down the list that way. It doesn't have to be exactly five of one of the senses, right? Doing those kind of practices. And another is to use touch. So we're going to focus on the kidneys today. We're going to use our hand and place it right back here,
Okay,
right
okay.
at the just below or just right at that last rib. Only if that's comfortable to you. If it's not comfortable, you can take a little towel, roll it up, and put it back there to just kind of give you a little marker and just paying attention to how that towel feels. Okay. So I'll just run us through a quick practice that includes grounding. That's just noticing the supports underneath you. And then we'll do a little practice with the kidney adrenals. And then it's really important to rest because research shows that when you rest, it helps your brain to start to take in and integrate that new thing that you just did.
Okay.
Okay. So that's why in learning research, you learn math, you go to sleep, you'll learn it better than if you learn math and then you go out and play baseball. You're not going to remember what you learned. So it's that resting period that helps even more. Okay. So just giving yourself a chance to settle in and just arrive, noticing that you're here in your space. And for people who are sitting, have support at their backs, just noticing the support at your back and under your seat, under your legs, and under your feet. And now just noticing your breath, not needing to do anything with your breath, just noticing it. And just seeing if it changes at all as it enters. Does it go any deeper? Does it stay just the same? Just being aware of it. And now, if it's comfortable for you, placing your hand right there on your back. And if it's not comfortable, you can remove your hand as well. And now, just noticing, paying attention to that warmth from your hand right there on your skin. If your hand is not on your back, then using your imagination to sense how that would feel if there was warmth on your back from your hand there. And just noticing the little bit of pressure right there on your back or using your imagination. I'm removing my hand because it's uncomfortable for me at this point. So right there at your bottom rib on whichever side you chose first. Just sensing into it. That kidney and adrenal gland are sitting right there, closer to your back, right there near your bottom rib cage. So the kidney is about the size of an adult fist, and the adrenal gland sits on top of the kidney, kind of like a hat. And the adrenal gland on the right side is shaped like a pyramid, and on the left side is shaped like a half moon. So depending on which side you're on, Just noticing this right or left kidney and adrenal. Okay, for this exercise, let's everyone switch to the right kidney adrenal. It's getting too confusing. Okay, so your right kidney and adrenal. Just noticing the presence of this right kidney and adrenal. And maybe noticing a little warmth through that area. And maybe noticing a little pulsing through that area. And imagining this right kidney and adrenal is settling a little bit back into your back body and down towards your feet. There's nothing to do right now, just resting and imagining back and down. And now slowly shifting our awareness to our left kidney and adrenal, which sits a little higher into the rib cage than the right kidney and adrenal. And so just becoming aware of the presence of this left kidney and adrenal. And the adrenal gland on the left side is shaped like a half moon and is a little heavier and a little larger than the right adrenal. So becoming aware of this left kidney and adrenal. Maybe noticing a little warmth through that area. And maybe noticing a little pulsing. And imagining this left kidney and adrenal settling a little bit back into your back body and down towards your feet. Just imagining back and down. And now just allowing ourselves to rest. Nothing to do, just resting for just a few moments to allow that to settle deeper into your body. And then slowly just starting to shift a little bit in your seat. And then using any of your five senses to slowly bring yourself all the way back into your room.
Thank you, Unya.
Thank you, Dr. Dara.
That was such a refreshing moment. Thank you so much for leading us into a somatic exercise and just all of your wisdom and the gems that you dropped today, and just being able to help us educate ourselves on accessing our minds and our bodies in a healthier way and also God pleasing ways was really, really important and refreshing. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And Yes, and for those of you who are here for the first time, please like, subscribe, and please comment about what you took away from this session today. It would be great to hear your thoughts. And if you have any questions, please follow up with Unya as well. I'll have her contact and her website in the description box here. So this would be great for you all to stay connected. So thank you for being here. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.